Okay, algebraic expressions, mathematical models, and real numbers. So we're going to focus on looking at variables and algebraic expressions. So a variable is a symbol, usually a letter. We usually like to use X, Y, or Z to represent an unknown number. We use other symbols also, but these are going to be the most common ones we'll see. An algebraic expression is just a collection of numbers and variables separated by operations, addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. So what we're about to do here isn't really anything too new that you've done before. We just have to go ahead and substitute the value that's going to represent the variable and then just simplify the expression. So that's what we're going to do here. So on my first one, I have 11 times x minus 7 for when x equals negative 2. So I'm going to substitute this negative 2 in for the x right here. So now I'm going to have 11 times negative 2 minus 7. And then from here, I just do my order of operations. So multiplication is going to be my first step. So 11 times negative 2 is going to be negative 22. And then we have to subtract 7 from that. So negative 22. And then I'm going to take away 7 more. That will be a total of negative 29 right there. Okay, part B, pretty similar. This time my expression is 2 minus 8 times x. This time x is going to be a negative 4. So we're going to end up with 2 minus 8 times a negative 4 right here. Okay, so the minus 8 times negative 4, I'm just going to focus on the multiplication here first. So let's see. 8 times a negative 4 would give us a negative 32. And then if you remember our rules with subtracting a negative, that will actually become addition right here. So this is going to become 2 plus 32, which then gives us a total of 34. Now, depending on how comfortable you are, you could have actually just jumped from this step to this step right here, noticing that you have your double negatives. And if you wanted to just change that to a plus 32, you could. I did go ahead and show that extra step just to be sure I didn't confuse anybody there by leaving out anything. All right, moving on. All right, on C we have 1 half times B times H. That's actually the formula for finding the area of a triangle. So you have the base and you have the height right there. And the 1 half comes in because if you were to multiply just the base times the height, you would actually get this rectangle right here in red. And so the 1 half will make it to where we're only getting half of that, which is going to be the area of that rectangle right there. Okay, so let's go ahead and substitute these values in. So I'm going to have 1 half times the b value, which is 6, and then times my h value, which is 7. Now the order I multiply this doesn't really matter, but I'll just kind of go from left to right here. So 1 half times 6, basically half of 6, which would be a 3. And then we're going to multiply that by 7. 3 times 7 is 21. Okay, my next one, what you'll notice is I have x actually appearing more than once. So I have 4x to the power of 2 plus 2 times x and then minus 7. And so we're going to substitute in 3 for everywhere we see x. So now it's going to be 4 times 3 to the power of 2 plus 2 times 3. And then we still have that minus 7. We don't want to forget about that. So with orders of operations, we actually take care of the exponent first. So we're going to go ahead and take care of that 3 to the power of 2. So 3 times 3 is 9. And then next is multiplication and division from left to right. So right here, I have multiplication between the 4 times 9. And I might as well take care of this multiplication right here also, 2 times 3. So let's see, we're going to end up with 36 plus 2 times 3 is 6, and then minus 7. Now we're down to our addition and subtraction, and once again we'll work it from left to right. So 36 plus 6 is going to be 42. Then we're going to remove 7. So 42 take away 7, that would leave us with 35. Okay, I have a couple more on my next slide for us to do. All right. So right here I have negative b divided by 2a, and that's actually a formula too that we'll cover in a later course in college algebra. All right, so right here we have negative b over 2a, and they give me a value for a and for b, so we're going to substitute those in. So this time I have two variables. So let's see, be careful because the negative is part of the formula, and then for b I'm going to substitute in negative 16, and then divided by 2 times my a value, which in this case will be 4. And then now we're just going to simplify this. So on top, I have those double negatives, negative 16, which will become positive 16, and then 2 times 4, which would be an 8, and then 16 divided by 8 is 2. Okay, on F here, this is kind of interesting. So I have negative x to the power of 2 minus 6 divided by x minus 2, and for x, we're going to substitute a 3 in. So we're going to have negative, and then parentheses, I'm going to substitute that 3 in, then minus 6 divided by 3 minus 2. And so once again, order of operations, we'll take care of that exponent first right here. So that negative is not actually part of that. By the way, just for notation issues, whenever you have a negative x squared, that's really negative 1 times x squared, okay? That's a little different than if you had negative x to the power of 2. Those two things are actually different right here. All right, so let's see. The negatives still there, then 3 squared is 9, so it will take on a value of negative 9, then minus 6 all over 3 minus 2. And we can go ahead and take care of both parts right here. Negative 9 minus 6 is going to be a negative 15. And then on bottom we have 3 minus 2, which is a 1. And whenever you divide or multiply by 1, you just get the same value in return. So negative 15 divided by 1 is just going to be negative 15. So it's not necessary to write it as a fraction any longer. All right, a few more for us to look at. So on G, once again, we have that deal where that negative's out in front. So it's really negative 1 times x squared. So you want to square it and then multiply by the negative. So what we're going to have here is negative parentheses. Now what I'm plugging in is negative. So negative 5 squared, then minus 2 times negative 5 plus 7. All right, so I'm going to square my negative 5 to get started. And so that negative comes down right here, the one on the outside. And negative 5 squared, negative 5 times negative 5 is positive 25. And then right here, just depending on your comfort level, you have a minus 2 times a negative 5. So really you have a double negative going on here. Negative 2 times negative 5 is positive 10, or we'll go ahead and write that as a plus 10. And then we do have our plus 7 right there. Okay, next, we're going to add and subtract from left to right. So negative 25 plus 10. Be careful. This is a negative 15. A common mistake is students will say negative 35, but you're having a negative plus a positive, so they offset each other a little bit, and I end up at negative 15 right here. And then don't forget, we do need to add that 7. And then once again, they're getting offset a little bit here. So negative 15 plus 7 is actually going to be a negative 8 right there. Okay, our last one looking here, this one looks interesting. So negative x to the power of 2 minus 2 times x times y. So we'll substitute our values in. So I've got that negative out front, and then for x, I'm going to plug in negative 2 and square it. And then minus 2 times my x value, which is negative 2, and then times my y value, which is positive 3. So the best thing to do is just kind of break this into smaller pieces. Just kind of focus on one piece at a time. So I have to take care of the exponent first. So negative 2 squared will become a positive 4, but that negative will follow it. So this will end up being a negative 4 right here, and we'll deal with that in just a second. So now let's focus on these values. What I would do is just multiply them together one at a time, and the multiplication, the order you multiply them does not really matter. So I'm just going to multiply the back two first, actually. So I'm still going to have my minus 2, and then when I multiply this together, negative 2 times a negative 3, that'll become a negative 6. Okay? And so then next, now I need to multiply the minus 2 and the negative 6 together. So once again, kind of like what I had over here, I'm going to have those double negatives being multiplied together. So let's see, I have my negative 4 out front. Then a negative times a negative will become plus 2. Negative 2 times negative 6 will become positive 12 or plus 12. And then last, I'm left with negative 4 plus 12, which will give us a positive 8. Okay, so that's simplifying expressions with variables.